slices. The clean cuts made by Japanese kitchen knives make ingredients look their best. Japanese cuisine appeals not just to the palate, but also to the eye. And that culinary artistry would not be possible without exceptional knives. Over the centuries, the Japanese have made an incredible variety of kitchen knives. They're made by fusing iron and steel, a technique perfected by Japanese swordsmiths. In more recent times, various knives have been devised that are virtually rust-proof and stay sharp for a long time. Now that Japanese cuisine is popular worldwide, Japanese knives are winning international acclaim for their sharpness and durability. On this edition of Begin Japanology, we explore the world of Japanese kitchen knives. From traditional types necessary for preparing elaborate Japanese dishes to the latest high-tech blades.
Hello and welcome to Begin Japanology. I'm Peter Barakan. Our theme for today is kitchen knives. I'm in the Kappabashi district of Tokyo, where you have block after block full of shops, all specializing in restaurant supplies. And by that I mean that if you wanted to start a restaurant, you could come to this area and buy everything from your cutlery to your kitchenware, refrigerators, countertops, signboards, even those little wax models of food that Japanese restaurants specialize in for display purposes. In the many years that I've been living in Japan, I've developed a healthy respect for Japanese kitchen knives on account of how they cut so well. They come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and the reason for that is closely connected with Japanese culinary culture. We'll start off with a look at some of the characteristics of Japanese kitchen knives.
A meal of sushi created from slices of fresh seasonal fish, gorgeously arranged. Not only does it taste good, it looks great as well. You can call it edible art. Such a beautiful presentation would be impossible without Japanese kitchen knives, which have a long history. The shape of the blade is the most distinctive feature of Japanese kitchen knives. Most have a chiseled ground blade. The edge is sharpened on only one side. Here, by contrast, is a typical Western-style knife. The blade is double beveled. It's sharp on both sides. What difference does this make? Many Japanese knives are used for preparing fish. The deba knife is one of the most common types of Japanese kitchen knife. A blade edge that is flat on one side is ideal for cleanly separating fish flesh from the bone. And when cutting fish flesh itself, a chisel ground blade pushes away only the flesh on the sharpened side. With a double beveled knife, the flesh splits away in both directions. In other words, the chisel ground blade makes it easier to slice fish. And it leaves a cleaner surface where the cut was made. The sheer variety of Japanese knives is startling. There are 50 different types. This rectangular knife, called the usuba knife, is used for peeling and fine slicing. A skilled chef can use it to turn fresh vegetables into spectacular creations. This technique is used to peel away a continuous thin sheet from a daikon radish. A chisel ground blade is flush against the radish. It maintains an even thickness of peel, a sheet so thin it's translucent. With a double beveled blade, the downward side of the blade is curved and won't rest securely. As a result, the peel has an uneven thickness. Using an usuba knife, a chef can make daikon both attractive and tender. Next is this long, thin knife called the Yanagiba knife. It's useful for filleting small fish that have only a thin layer of flesh. But there are also knives designed for slicing very large fish. One example is this sword-like maguro knife, literally tuna knife. The blade is 1.5 meters long and 2 men are needed to wield it. This knife makes it possible to quickly cut a tuna of almost 2 meters in length. Speed is the secret to freshness. Next is the sashimi knife with a 30 centimeter blade. The length of the blade makes it possible to cut with one smooth, drawn stroke. Sawing back and forth makes the surface of a cut bumpy, and the flesh loses its gloss. This long knife is designed to complete the slice in one clean stroke. Cutting with a chisel ground blade gives each slice a well-defined shape and a glossy finish. There are also many Japanese knives designed to cut specific types of fish. This is pike conger, a fish with numerous small bones. One knife is designed specifically to chop up the countless tiny bones to make the flesh easier to eat. This thick knife weighs 600 grams. Chefs use its weight to cut flesh and bone at 1 millimeter intervals. These funny-looking creatures are fugu blowfish. Fugu contains poison in its organs, but it's considered a delicacy in Japan. Fugu's flesh is very firm, so it's cut into very thin slices that are satisfyingly chewy. For that, you need a knife that is extremely thin. The slices of fugu are arranged in a chrysanthemum pattern. To create an elegant presentation like this, you must have a special fugu knife. These are just some examples of Japanese knives whose size and shape are purpose-made for specific kitchen tasks.
This is a shop that specializes in knives, and as you can see, they've got a rather splendid selection of them. Here are some of the knives we've just seen in the video. We've got the deba here. These are yanagi. These are the usuba. And this one has a rounded blade. What's that for?
It's designed specifically for cutting sushi rolls. The large blade makes it easy for you to keep it straight and make clean cuts.
And these ones next to it, these with the kind of very angular shape to them, what are these for?
This one is an eel knife. It's shaped like this so that you can slice open eels with ease.
So they really have designs for every different kind of fish. It's quite amazing. I've noticed that some of the signs in here are in English, and the man in the shop tells me they get customers from abroad just about every day. And I can see we have a customer here. I'm going to ask him a few questions. Hello.
Hi.
Hello. I hope you don't mind if I ask you a couple of questions.
Sure.
Have you used Japanese knives before at all?
I have.
Do you run a restaurant yourself, or you just use them at home, or what?
I'm just a hobbyist. I just use them at my house for personal use.
How did you feel about your knife using it? Were you impressed?
I'm very impressed. It's extremely sharp. So sharp that I was chopping garlic and chopped the edge of my finger off.
Oh, you didn't?
I did.
You did?
So it healed up.
Wow.
You can't even see it now.
Wow.
But be very careful with the Japanese knives. They're extremely sharp.
Okay, well, you've heard how well Japanese blades are cut and how long they last. Let's find out why.
The city of Sakai in Osaka. 90% of the knives used by kitchen professionals in Japan are made here. Knife making in Sakai has long been done through division of labor. This knife maker has been in business for more than 100 years. Blacksmith Tatsuo Ikeda carries on the traditions of centuries past. He makes each knife by hand to order. First, a piece of steel is set on top of soft iron that has been heated. Steel is a hard metal that has been strengthened by the inclusion of carbon. Typically, a Japanese knife is made by fusing soft iron and hard steel. The steel portion forms the edge of the blade. The method of fusing metals of varying strength can be traced to traditional Japanese sword-making techniques. Iron and steel are heated to 900 degrees Celsius and hammered repeatedly to fuse them together. Steel has the advantage of being a hard metal and the disadvantage of being brittle. Combining steel with softer iron results in a knife that won't snap, yet which still has a sharp edge. After an hour of work at the forge, the shape of the knife is clear. Now comes the climax, tempering. Ikeda says this is where he feels the most tension. After being heated red hot by a charcoal fire, the knife is plunged into water to quench it. The rapid cooling imparts a dense molecular structure to the iron and steel, making the metal harder. This is where you need to carefully control the temperature. The right temperature range is very narrow. Steel becomes hardest between 780 and 800 degrees Celsius, a range of just 20 degrees. Any higher and it will get brittle, any lower and it will turn out soft. Tempering is all or nothing. There are no second chances. Ikeda gauges when to plunge the metal into the water based on the redness of the metal. He darkens his workspace and focuses intently on the color of the blade. Iron has just become a blade. This task demands years of experience. But this blade is not yet sharp, so Ikeda hands the knife on to the next craftsman. This is the grinder, the craftsman who gives the blade a sharp edge. Using an electrically powered abrasive wheel, he grinds the edge straight and even. Then he sharpens it with a series of whetstones. Finally, a handle is added by another craftsman, and the knife is complete. It took about 2 days to make this knife. Japanese kitchen knives, individually handmade by skilled artisans, are works of exceptional craftsmanship.
In addition to Sakai, the place we've just seen in the video, there are a number of other centres of knife making in Japan, most of which have close links to the swordsmiths who used to make blades for the samurai back in the olden days. And it's those same techniques which are responsible for the development of Japanese kitchen knives. Now, Japanese knives are renowned for their sharp cutting edge, but in order to maintain that edge, they have to be, of course, sharpened regularly. Now, we've brought in a knife today which has totally lost its edge. It's absolutely useless. And to show you how useless it is, I'll try to cut this piece of paper here, and absolutely no dice. So we're going to have a go at sharpening this knife, and the gentleman in the shop is going to show me how to do it.
To sharpen a knife, you use 3 whetstones, one by one. Hold the knife firmly in your right hand at a 45-degree angle to the edge. Raise one end slightly, enough for a couple of coins to slide under it, and you move it back and forth. Eventually, the very edge of the blade will bend and stick out towards you a little bit, which you can feel with your fingers. So you keep sharpening till you get that.
Oh, can I have a feel, please? Thank you. Oh, I see. It develops a kind of an edge on the blade, and you can tell that it's sharpening.
Now go ahead and try it.
And you hold it here. You have to get the angle. It says you have to keep the same angle, not change it. So I hope I can do that.
Don't just do the same part.
I'm probably making a total mess of this. While I go on with it, let's move on to the next video now, which is a look at the history of knives in Japan.
Ironworking came to Japan in the 6th century from the Korean peninsula. It involves smelting iron. Inside a furnace built from clay, a charcoal fire is built. Iron sand is then added. This will be turned into iron. Within a fire stoked to around 1,500 degrees Celsius, the carbon from the charcoal and the iron from the iron sand combine to make hard steel. After 70 hours of heating, lumps of iron are formed at the bottom of the furnace. From among these, chunks of high-quality steel with few impurities would be selected to become the raw material of Japanese swords. Japanese swords are renowned for not breaking or bending, and for cutting extremely well. It's from Japanese swords that modern Japanese knives developed. Here's a scene from a picture scroll that was painted in the 14th century. It depicts people gutting a fish using a knife shaped like a small sword. A ritual dating back to the 9th century preserves one way in which knives were used at that time. A fish is cut up without being touched directly, using a knife and chopsticks. This kind of knife-wielding expertise already existed 1,200 years ago. Knives in their modern form developed in the 18th and 19th centuries. This was a period of peace in Japan when various new culinary traditions emerged. In Edo, as Tokyo was then called, food stalls offering quick stand-up meals mushroomed everywhere. Sushi, a slice of fresh raw fish on a lump of rice, became very popular. Sushi cuisine opened the way to modern-style Japanese kitchen knives. With the sushi boom, more and more people needed to cut fish. And in order to deliver a cleaner cut, Japanese kitchen knives with a chisel ground blade were invented. However, a chisel ground blade cannot make a straight cut through a thick piece of food that is hard. And so a different kind of knife was invented for cutting vegetables. It's called the nakiri knife. Ease of use was the goal, and more different types of Japanese kitchen knives were created. The late 19th century brought to Japan the Western custom of eating meat. Along with meat eating came the Western-style meat knife. These knives had double beveled edges in order to cut through not just meat, but tough gristle and bone. Eating habits were changing in Japan, and in the 1940s, kitchen knives evolved further, culminating in the development of a single knife that was suitable for cutting meat, fish, and vegetables. This combined the best features of Western-style and Japanese-style knives. It's called the Santoku knife, literally triple virtue knife. It was lighter and thinner than a conventional Western knife, so housewives were very excited about it. The knife also had an excellent cutting edge, so it quickly became ubiquitous in Japanese kitchens. To keep up with a changing culinary culture and to make life easier for chefs, Japanese kitchen knives have undergone a unique evolutionary process.
So let's take a look at our knife again and see if its edge has been restored. Here we go, and here's that piece of paper that I was unable to cut earlier on. There we go. Look at that. Make sure I don't lose any fingers. That's amazing, isn't it? It just slices straight through that like butter. Woo! Thank you very much. That's really good. Now, there have been many innovations in Japanese knife making in recent years, not only in the way they cut, but in different materials and also ease of use. Here are just a few examples. This is a ceramic knife, which it's quite light. It's extremely hygienic, of course, very easy to clean. This one's made from titanium. It's even lighter. It's so light, it almost feels like a toy, although it definitely isn't. And this is stainless steel, but you'll see it has a dimpled blade. And the reason for that is that you get air in the dimples, then prevents the knife from sticking to whatever it is you're trying to cut. All right, let's move on now. We're going to take a look at a factory in a small city in Japan, which has produced a line of knives which have become popular with chefs all around the world.
New York City. Chefs in the Big Apple love a certain type of Japanese knife. Each one is made of one solid piece of stainless steel, from blade to handle. These knives have been gaining popularity internationally, not just because they look great, but because they cut exceptionally well. The world's first all-stainless steel knife was developed by a kitchenware manufacturer in Tsubame City, Niigata Prefecture. The small factory now exports more than 600,000 knives a year to Europe and North America. Tsubame has long been known as a center of Japan's metal kitchenware industry. This factory also turns out stainless steel cutlery. Conventional Japanese kitchen knives do have some disadvantages. They rust easily, and the wooden handles can start to rot. Stainless steel knives invented after the Second World War resist corrosion, but they must be sharpened frequently as they quickly get blunt. This company set out to develop a knife that would stay sharp for a long time and have a handle that wouldn't rot. So they decided to make the entire knife out of stainless steel. They started with traditional table knives. The handles of table knives are hollow inside. The company used its know-how in fabricating such forms to create an all-stainless steel knife. This solved the problem of the handle. The next challenge was how to make the cutting edge last. The company turned to an ultra-hard stainless steel alloy. It's called molybdenum vanadium steel. This metal was originally invented for making medical scalpels. It has exceptional corrosion resistance and hardness. After 5 years, the company had perfected its all stainless steel knives. The new knives could hold their sharpness while offering the advantages of stainless steel. But right after the knives went on the market, shocking complaints began pouring in from other countries. The exported knives were snapping in too. They were absolutely useless. The ones we sold in Japan never broke. But when we started selling them abroad, they would break. It was because chefs abroad used them totally differently. The problem lay in how the knives were being used. In Japan, knives are wielded with pushing or drawing motions. But in other countries, they're often used for tasks like chopping fish or meat with bone inside. This would subject the knife to much more severe shocks than anticipated. How could the company make its knives stronger? The development team went back to square one. They found the answer in Sanjo, a city neighbouring Tsubame. Sanjo has flourished as a blade manufacturing town for centuries. The techniques developed there to create hard, tough blades offered hints to help the company improve its knives. One was hammer forging to increase the strength of iron. Experiments revealed that the company's new molybdenum vanadium steel could also be strengthened by hammer forging. Another technique was heat tempering. The knives are heated to more than 1,000 degrees Celsius. Then they're cooled to minus 80 degrees using liquid nitrogen. These processes make the metallic crystals of the knife more condensed, which makes the knife more resilient. Hammer forging and heat tempering are techniques that blacksmiths have honed over many centuries. These superb traditional skills, combined with state-of-the-art materials, gave birth to a new type of Japanese kitchen knife.
Knife production is somewhat on the decline in Japan now, and one major reason for that is the abundance of pre-cut vegetables and fish that you can find in supermarkets, meaning that a lot of people can actually get by without even owning a decent kitchen knife. In the past, there was a saying in Japan that men should stay out of the kitchen, but recently, particularly men of my own generation, many of whom are now approaching retirement age, are using their newfound free time to indulge in things like cooking classes. Who knows, there may be a whole new market there for kitchen knives. In fact, just the other day I was saying to my wife that it's about time that I finally learned how to help out a bit in the kitchen, so who knows, maybe I should go back in here and get my own knife. I'll see you again next time.
Next time, fishing. 10 million people in Japan are said to enjoy fishing. We take a look at the typically Japanese features of fishing, including incredibly lifelike bait.